Welcome to a double top grades video because you've got me, Mr. Salles, but you also have First Rate Tutor, and we are going to give you 3 quotes that fit every single essay that could come up, and we're going to show you how to use them to get top grades. In we go. At number 1 we have, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but vaulting ambition, which leaps over itself and falls on the other side. Now obviously we're going to talk about ambition because that is the central theme of Macbeth's character. Many people think this is his fatal flaw, his hamartia. And so that's an easy way to get up to grade 7. I like to look at this and think, well, is it his ambition? Because he says, look, I've got this vaulting ambition, I want to leap up high to become king, but he says I'm going to fall on the other side. My ambition is not enough. What I need is another spur. Because a horse rider, 2 legs, 2 boots, 2 spurs. I've only got the 1 spur, which is ambition. What else do I need? What he needs is Lady Macbeth. He knows that he can't pull this off unless he gets Lady Macbeth's help. This leads you into discussing how cruel it is that once she's given the help, he then starts backing away from her. We also then have to think, well, is she responsible for making him kill Duncan if actually he wants her to do that? Is he much more responsible than she is? So I totally love this quote, and obviously it's a metaphor, you can get your methods in there. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think this quote is amazing because in addition to what you've mentioned, I think this quote is great as you immediately go straight into analysis talking about themes. You can tie it to Macbeth's character, but actually if you get a question to do with ambition and its corrupting influence, you can use that quotation as well. But also this quote is great because if you then contrast it with the consequences of ambition through Macbeth's character and what he says at the end, this quote is excellent because we can see here with this, the witches have already successfully planted the seeds of ambition in his mind. We can see that he has an internal raging conflict, and as you are analysing this and talking about how he's now contemplating violating divine right of kings, you then can in the same essay have a really nice contrast on the consequences of ambition with the 3rd quotation we're going to be going over, how this contrasts him finally realizing just how destructive this emotion is.
Brilliant. So you get to go again. Quote number 2.
So the 2nd quotation, which I think would be brilliant for any essay, is of course to do with Lady Macbeth's character because she is the other main character who you can always bank on being able to talk about in your essays. And the quote that I think is a top Lady Macbeth quote is not the unsexy hair that everybody always talks about. It's actually when she advises Macbeth to look like the innocent flower but be the serpent under it. Firstly, when it comes to analysis, why this quotation firstly encapsulates her character, the juxtaposition of the word flower, this noun, with the serpent, okay, this contrast, we can see that clearly this encapsulates Lady Macbeth's character. In other words, we can see how she uses appearance and deception, not only to deceive others, but actually ultimately to change hers and Macbeth's status as they rise above the natural order and become king and queen. But also I think this quotation is really interesting in firstly illustrating, if you're thinking about in terms of context, how Lady Macbeth was keenly aware of her gender as a woman, and because she felt the constraints around this, she then was able to think about how she could manipulatively use her gender in order to deceive others and to attain power. It's actually showing Lady Macbeth as quite a forceful character, but she approaches it in a very distinctly different way to Macbeth, who's very outwardly violent, very brutal in his approach. This quote not only shows Lady Macbeth's initial bloodthirsty character, but right at the end, you can obviously always contrast it with what she says when she's sleepwalking and how she also experiences the consequences and the punishment of using her appearance to deceive others. And by the way, guys, just a quick plug, I'm going to be doing a one-off Macbeth GCSE masterclass on the 7th of April. So of course, guys, if you want to see how to use these actual quotations and apply them to a model answer before your exams, make sure you join in.
Cool.
What would be the final awesome
Oh,
quote?
no, I'm gonna give you some extra that I love on this. So, King James had a commemorative medallion or coin printed after he survived the gunpowder plot, and guess what was on it? It was a flower with a serpent underneath it. And so this is one of Shakespeare's ways of ingratiating himself, sucking up to, if you like, King James. He wants King James to respect him. King James is his patron. He's going to make Shakespeare earn a fortune. But it's also full of biblical imagery. So the serpent, of course, is Satan in disguise who tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden. This is Shakespeare's way of saying, look, Lady Macbeth is a completely evil character. She is like the serpent, like Satan, and she is therefore most responsible for persuading Macbeth. And you've got to decide whether this is a fair view of her character or whether Shakespeare is being unnecessarily cruel to her. What do you reckon?
I would say that Shakespeare is certainly being unnecessarily cruel to her. He's also working towards, and he's working with the trope of Eve and women's deceptiveness leading to a man's downfall, whilst it's actually Macbeth that did kill the king himself.
Yeah.
That would be my interpretation.
Yeah,
How
I
about
like that. No, I like that. That works for me. Although I quite like the idea that Macbeth, that Shakespeare's a secret feminist. But, you know. So, out, brief candle.
And this is taken from the end, right?
It is.
It's taken a quotation from the end because any amazing Macbeth essay needs to always contrast what's happening at the start versus how they shift at the end.
Yeah, so it's worth actually saying, if you're going to start with the extract, it's important then to jump from the extract to the beginning and then to the end in order to show the changes, isn't it? Right, so out, brief candle. This is after Lady Macbeth has died. And I love this language because it mimics Lady Macbeth's out, damn spot. So he's deliberately using Lady Macbeth's language as though he's still deeply connected to her. Many people see this as Macbeth couldn't care less about Lady Macbeth dying. He forgets about her straight away. But I don't. I see this as him deeply in love with her. He's still using the language that she used. And her death is what makes him nihilistic. If you're nihilistic, you think there's no point to life. And so here, Shakespeare gets really meta. He loves doing this. So he says, life's but a walking shadow. So the shadow idea for us gives us the idea that it's like a pale imitation of the real thing. But in Shakespeare's day, the shadow was the name for the understudy. If the main actor wasn't there on the stage, because they were ill, say, the person standing in for that actor would be called the shadow, which works exactly with Macbeth's situation. He's now thinking, Duncan was the rightful king, I've just been a shadow. I've been king, but I'm not like the real thing. A poor player is an actor. And so this leads us to the final part of the nihilism, where he's saying, okay, I've been acting a script. So this brings in fate, it brings in God. And he's saying, who's written that script? It is an idiot. This is his way of saying, I'm not really responsible for what I've done. Someone else has written that script. And he's turning against God, which obviously in Jacobean times would have been a way to condemn Macbeth even further. So he's actually turning against his creator, calling him an idiot, and therefore his divine punishment is just round the corner. How do you see it?
So this is literally my favourite quote from the entire play, right? So this quotation, I think, is his moment when he's been deserted by most of his men. He's at war, his wife has died, and now he's starting to get a bit of an epiphany, and he's starting to realise, actually, my initial ambition and listening to the witches is going to lead to my own demise. He's starting to realise, firstly, through seeing how brief life is, his wife has died, he's starting to realise that he might not be as indestructible as he thought, even if his ambition to this point has led him to develop this hubris. Oh, I'm indestructible. The witches told me no man born of woman can ever harm me, therefore I'm never going to die. But actually here we can see this inner conflict and him actually realising, hang on, maybe I've made a mistake. Listening to the witches, and of course, obviously this mistake does come to full circle once he is killed and he becomes the second Thane of Cawdor that also is killed. But also, I think this reference to him basically saying that this is a tale told by an idiot, it literally foreshadows and anticipates. Once Macduff tells him Macduff was not born, was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. Here we can see that he is foreshadowing that he's realizing the idiocy of his ways. He's realizing, actually, now when I'm looking in hindsight, I think I've made a mistake, right? So he has kind of this revelation, this mini revelation, which actually then becomes a full revelation before Macduff kills him. This hubris that he thought he's indestructible, the supernatural is protecting him, he actually starts to realize, actually, I could be on the way out. I am a bit of an idiot for listening to the witches when everybody in Jacobean society says that they are fiends who always mislead you. So I think this quotation is amazing. I think it's excellent. Also, for those of you guys that love Elton John, I would actually say that, the Candle in the Wind is kind of inspired, I would say, by this.
Would you?
I would think so.
Oh my God. Right. That's
my
interesting.
perspective.
That's interesting.
That's my perspective.
Right. So I confidently said at the beginning of this video that you can apply it to any question. It's easy for us to see, well, you can have all these quotes for Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. So let's now think, well, what if it's the supernatural? How would we apply each quote? So the first one, I guess, is the supernatural that gives him the ambition.
Absolutely, and they plant the seeds of ambition in his mind. So we can see here already the supernatural not only have started corrupting his character, but they now started creating an internal sense of conflict. And of course, this is perfectly shown through the vaulting ambition. He has this deep sense of inner conflict that's been created by his encounter with the witches.
Brilliant. So then we go to the second one. Well, we've got the obvious connection with Satan and evil, and Lady Macbeth is inviting Macbeth to become more evil. That is like when she asked for the murdering ministers to help her. So she seeks out the evil of the supernatural. Can you take it further?
I think in terms of this seeking out the evil of the supernatural, obviously there's that kind of reference to her being kind of like Eve, right?
Yes.
Working with the serpent to lead to the Adam's downfall. I think also just this idea of just deception. She deliberately went against her nature as a woman. She was not supposed to be ambitious. She was not supposed to want more for herself. And this highlights her going against that nature as a woman, Jacobean nature, okay? And of course, that then directly relates to the supernatural, right? So you can make a really nice and very easy AO3 context point relating to it. Okay,
and you've made a really strong case that he realises now that the supernatural has tricked him, and that's why he now thinks he's an idiot. I'm going to give you an alternative and see what you think about this. I think he doesn't think he's an idiot here. And he knows that the supernatural's tricked him, and so he now goes looking, who's he that was not born of woman? He actually goes out looking for the person who is going to kill him, because life signifies nothing. He's now ready for death. He just wants to find out who it is. And the irony for him is the one person he feels guilty about is Macduff, that he's killed all Macduff's family, so he doesn't want to fight him. That's the one person who isn't born of a woman, and therefore can kill him.
Okay.
What do you reckon?
I would say that's a very circuitous way of seeing it. I wouldn't say I'm entirely convinced. I think this is just a moment of realization for him. And I think obviously how the direct connection is to the supernatural is because he's starting to realize, right? He's not completely fully realized by this stage, but he's starting to realize, I think I made a mistake listening to the witches, and now I feel like my past self, when I first encountered them, is an idiot.
Excellent. We've just given you a discussion about the supernatural there, and I've done that to try and show you that actually these three quotes you can apply to anything. We've given you loads of detail. You could almost get away with just using the extract in these three quotes and still get a grade 9.
Yeah, and of course, guys, if you do want to see how to apply them within an essay, you can of course join in my Macbeth masterclass on the 7th of April during Easter.
How will we find your masterclass?
How you will find it is literally head over to YouTube, First Rate Tutors, or even just Google First Rate Tutors, and you're going to see GCSE literature right there, nice and bright colours, and you can sign up very easily.
Brilliant. I will eventually put my prediction video up here somewhere, so check it out if it's there, and if it's not there, don't check it. It's not there.